Hey guys. Alright, so I've been thinking of what I wanted to do next, and I have an exciting thing that I wanted to try. I realized when I was sorting through and cleaning up my workspace that I still have some resin that needs to be basically used up, shall we say. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to go ahead and do a tutorial that compares the two kinds of resins that I've used thus far and do a side by side, use up some of that resin, as well as then just do a comparison. So a little bit of experimenting. Basically, I'm going to be doing whatever I do with the one, I'm going to do the same with the other. That way it's everything else is all the same essentially. Temperature might be a little bit different. That's the only thing I can't fully control, but you know, it'll be close. It'll be a good comparison, I feel like. So I've got two kinds of resin, and this will likely be, I realized I forgot to grab tape, and I can't remember where I put my tape, but I put it somewhere really smart. Of course I did. So this will be a two-parter, or no, excuse me, I think it's going to be a three-parter, because first part will be, we'll do one brand, second part will be the second brand, third part will be the reveal. So that's the plan, that's the setup for this one, this series, so pretty exciting. So without further ado, let's look at the two resins that we're going to be comparing, and then I'll tell you which one we're going to do first. So I've got artist resin, part A and B from Counterculture DIY. You know I love my Counterculture DIY. You'll notice that this is getting murky. That's part A. It's starting to turn and probably not be usable. Don't want to just toss it though, because it is a chemical. So you need to mix it before you could toss it, before it's essentially safe to toss, or put it in with like your, dispose it properly with like paints and gas, things of that nature, oil and things like that. Part B is turning yellow. Shouldn't be an issue with this project in comparison, because guess what? My other brand that we're going to be testing, the part B, is turning a yellow orange in its bottle too. So you'll notice my part A and part B bottles are two different sizes. So I have a little bit of A in here, and it was left over from a set that had two this size. Well, when I went to get my A of this size, it's crystallized and rock solid in here and can't be moved. So it's gone bad. Nothing I can do about it. I'll dispose of it properly. So I'm going to use up the rest of this A because they're the same brand. I'll use this A with this B, and basically I'm going to pour this A, determine how much I have to determine my B, which if you know me, I don't really like to do A before B, but I might measure this just in a separate cup and then measure my B. I've got the two coasters that we'll be using. We'll be using one of each per thing. And then I've got all my additives. I've got some gold foil flakes that we'll use, some alcohol inks, some casting craft, because we're going to do blooms on these, so we want that. I've got a couple micas, an armor art, and then a stone mica that looks like it just dropped on my molds in Sunset on the Beach, which who doesn't love that name? I wish I was watching the sunset on the beach right now, but we're not. We're crafting, which is the next best thing for me. So basically I'm going to clear this space. We are going to start with this amazing clear cast, because I don't know how much we're going to be able to pour out of this, and I don't know how much we're going to gain essentially or be able to mix. So this is going to be our determining factor. I do have a notepad off to the side, so I will be tracking all of this. So I'm going to just prop this bad boy up upside down so he can start dumping as much as we can in there while I kind of prep. So I'm just going to move the things that we're going to use off to the side. And basically we're going to try to use equivalent, the same on everything. So, whoa, I still haven't bought packing tape, which is rather ridiculous of me. So this would be easier with a bigger piece of tape, just to go through. It picks up dust particles. It's going to pick up anything that is dropped into the mold, like the mica powder, hairs, glitter pieces. Silicone likes to attract those things that we don't necessarily want in our art. So I never worry about doing this until I'm getting ready to mix resin, because let's be real, I could do this and then in 2 seconds it could be covered again. It seems like, especially in my workspace, it just gets all kinds of dirty. And I may have to do a little bit more in a minute after we fully set up. Looks like a little imperfection in that mold. It won't be noticeable. There's some dust, but I was like, I can't get it out. Just that little imperfection. Okay. Those out of our way. I'm going to bring my leveling table piece over. I just want to make sure that we are on a level surface. So this has a level in the middle. If you haven't watched other videos, then this is good to know. If you've watched other videos and seen me work off of this table, then you know that it's got a level in the center, and then it's got a silicone mat that goes over top of it. Silicone mat's pretty dirty, but that's not going to affect anything. It has legs on the bottom that you can adjust, and that also like turn like sideways depending on which way you need it to go to give you that stable surface. So making sure our dot is in the middle, and we're good. Okay, so level mat, our coasters on top of our level mat. Oh, it's gonna bug me. See, look, there's already, like, how do you do it? Like, really, how? It just gets covered. I'm like, why? Why, oh, why? Why? Okay, I digress. Alrighty, let's see how this guy's going. I'd say he's about done. So I'm gonna get a stir stick. And I think we'll be able to mix it all in one cup. So we'll do that. I'm gonna slide this back a little bit so you guys can see it just a smidge better. I'm gonna also go ahead, micas don't stain the silicone, however, alcohol ink does. So if you're fine with that, that's great. That's cool. But if you're not okay with that, little paper Dixie cups gonna be your best friend, because you can toss it. It doesn't matter if it gets stained. So I want at least 2 of those, because I've got 2 different alcohol ink colors that we'll be using. And then we have one, I don't know if this pigment will stain it. So because I just don't want to have it stained, I'm going to use a cup for it as well, this Armor Art. I haven't worked with it enough to know. But then I've got 2 mica powders. So I want little silicone cups for them. And I'll bring those into view, so don't worry. I know they're out of view right now. Probably like, hey, I can't see that. I know. I'm aware. And then I'm going to use just this small one for our stone mica, because honestly, it's not going to take much. So a small cup will be perfect. So I've got 3 paper cups and 3 little silicone cups, essentially. These are like, they have measurements on them. 2.75 milliliter little cups. little spouts. They're perfect. See, back in the day, I put alcohol ink and you can see where it's pink in there. So I learned. And this little guy is just so cute. He's just so fun. I love these ones with UV resin especially. And as I'm looking, this silicone cup is full of glitter. Not full, but I can see it. So I turned it inside out. And a little bit of our tape. And that cleaned it right up. Yay! Oh, come on. Alrighty. Let's see how much we got. I think it's about all we're going to get from it. I feel pretty good. So we're going to see how much B we need. Well, you know, you couldn't have an exact line or like 55, 56 probably. I'm going to say 55, and I'm going to make a note over here. 55 of each. That way I can remember, because by the time I come back and do the artist resin, I'll likely have forgotten. Now, make sure, since we're doing this test, I almost grabbed B of artist. That would have thrown this completely out the window. And then I'm just going to pour B in. And yes, it's yellow. Almost orange. Looks like a pea yellow. It's gross. Like if you haven't drank enough water that day. That was a weird correlation, but you know, hey. I poured a smidge too much. It's that being right between 55 and 60 kind of thing that's making that complex. Alright. I should probably get some gloves on before we get too busy. Before we get too wild and crazy. So the good news is this should all fit in this cup. So I'm going to pour A into this one and hope that I can mix it. Should be able to. Alright, we got some gloves on. I'm going to just slide these two guys back for a minute while we're doing this so that you can see. So B is in our weird pea color. And we're going to go ahead and pour A into B. It's going to be a tight fit in this cup. Maybe should have mixed it in a bigger cup. Probably going to have to, now that I'm looking at it. Now that I've made a total mess of this. Yep. Let's go to a bigger cup. This guy's so dirty. Tape and gloves are not going to be your best friend by any means. Just as an FYI. I'm not going to be able to get all the glitter out of this, but I don't think you're going to be able to see like a speck of glitter, so I'm just going to have to roll with it. Okay, bigger mixing cup. Here we go. Much, much better. That way I'm not fighting that small of a size. Now, neither of these cups will set up in the silicone, so we will have to clean them with wet resin because the resin wasn't mixed. I guess it would eventually set up, but I just found it's easier to do it while it's fresh. So we'll clean those when we get to a stopping point. We'll get this resin mixed and then we'll clean them. Okay. Got that one empty. Let's scrape this one this was our A, which is the hardener portion. So you definitely don't want to jip that one out. So I want to make sure that I get as much of it out of the cup and into our big cup, because I want it to have the even amount to have the chemical reaction and harden. We don't want to have a fail. So, okay. I think I've gotten it about as best as I can. So the next thing is we're going to mix. I'm going to go a smidge slower than I would normally, and that you may have seen with the tumblers, just because we're going to be doing blooms and I want as few bubbles as possible. So about 3 minutes. It just hit 16 minutes on the video. So we're going to mix this for about 3 minutes. And since we're doing this where both are going to get the same treatment, that's what we're going to want to make sure we follow. I really don't know how, but there's more glitter in those silicone molds. Like, okay. So as I'm mixing, it's a slow mix, round and round we go. I'm scraping around the sides of the cup all the way around. I'm also making sure that I go in the middle as well, especially when I'm stirring, just to pull up any on the bottom. We want that all pulled up. The other thing is I like to clean off my stir stick a few times and get that resin off the side and down in as well. I go left and I go right, so clockwise and counterclockwise, mixing it up. When you mix it up, you will get some bigger bubbles when you change direction, because you're just gonna inadvertently add air pockets into there. Hopefully they'll be big enough though that they should just pop right up. Just keep stirring and stirring and stirring, round and round. Got a minute and a half. My hand is tired. This is another reason why I can't do both, pour both sets tonight. I'm gonna break that up. I'm gonna go with my left hand now, just to give my right a break. One thing I would tell you is I've been working with counterculture for so long. I haven't used this amazing clear cast in a while. I bought this at like Michael's, or I think it was Michael's, I'm almost certain. Before I discovered counterculture, or before I felt like I could afford counterculture. What I would tell you with this one is I can clearly smell it more. Now, haters are going to come at me. I don't have my protective gear on. Doing a video through a mask just isn't going to work. So, for videos, I don't wear my protective gear. I don't let anybody else be in the room, though. So, it's just me. I know haters are going to hate and they're going to say how wrong. I hear you. I got you. Counterculture, though, this artist resin has no VOCs, so doesn't mean it's fully good to breathe, but it's definitely not going to be like others. So I can definitely smell it more than I can the counterculture. It looks actually really good. I know it still looks yellow in the cup, but when I pull this up, it doesn't look yellow. Okay, so we're going to let that sit for 5 minutes. So I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to write a note, stirred 3, so that I don't forget. Set for 5. So we're just after the 19 mark. So we'll clean these cups, get ourselves all prepped and ready for the next step, and then we'll start that. at 24. So paper towel, my best friend in my workspace. The one thing that I can't really reuse, but that's okay. Got my alcohol. This is 91%. Let me look. Because that label is not accurate. Because I put Amazon brand in. Oh no, I have 99 from Amazon. But I like that Equate bottle so much better. It has this phenomenal spout. So, 99% alcohol. So, throw it on the paper towel. Pick up our cup that needs cleaned. And with these cups, this size cup, 2 fingers is perfect for me. And I just go in and I go round and round we go. Get the bottom really good. Get all of our sides. I'll fold it over. It's still saturated in the rubbing alcohol. So I go round and round again. Looks really good. So before I fold that over again, I'm going to go ahead and hit this one up. Same thing. Round and round I go. This one had some that hit the outside, so we'll have to get that in a minute. I folded it over. Round and round we go. And you'll find your rhythm. You'll find how it works for you. And that's the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to try. So if I got any on my gloves, this is a good time. Just go ahead and wipe them off. I like to hit my outsides and my inside with one more round to clean. And then you just let this dry. And it's going to set up just fine. Be ready for the next round of whatever that may be. Alright. So, now this one, because it was the one that I was using at the end to clean, I set it aside, and that, like, when I'm ready to clean the big cup, I'll use that because it's not going to be the final wipe of that cup, essentially. We're going to have to wipe it a few times. Alright. Where? I'm going to say it like every time, but I'm not kidding, y'all. Like, I am getting my space so much more organized, and it's coming along so freaking well, but I keep losing things at the same time. So I got these little spray bottles at the Dollar Tree, $1.25 tree. I put my rubbing alcohol in them, so they help with this kind of stuff that we're going to get ready to do. I'm so excited. I haven't done a bloom, y'all, in a really long time. Way too long. Way too long. So, I'm excited that we're going to do this. It'll be fun. Gonna be fun. Alright, we're getting closer. Getting closer. I'm going to snag a quick drink, y'all. Don't mind me. When you're talking through all these, you start to get parched. Alrighty. So, some of these parts might go a little quick from here on out. So I will do my best to explain everything. But if I can't fully explain something as I'm doing the process, once we get poured and we're setting up, I will go into a little bit more detail so that you can get the full process. I don't know timing wise how it's going to fully go, since this is the first time I'm recording doing a bloom, and some of our timing, you gotta be careful because resin has a limited amount of time to work with, so we just have to be alert to that. Okay, so here's been our resin. We've got some bubbles that have come to the surface. I should have probably popped it a few times down just to bring any more up, but that's okay. This is good. We're gonna get our little handy dandy heat gun. I put it on low, and I'm just gonna get in there and pop some of these bubbles. If we had mixed more resin, which we couldn't because I was out of this brand, I wouldn't have to put the heat gun so in there, but it's all good. so good. All right, before I do that, we're going to spritz these. With just a little bit of rubbing alcohol. That way, I'll catch any of the bubbles, hopefully, in the crease. I'll pop them. And basically, I just want to get a very, very thin layer of clear down, because that's going to help our bloom. So I'm going to let that sit for a second like that. It's going to naturally gravitate towards the center. Resin moves to the center. It self-levels. Oops, getting messy. So we may have to push it up into our petals a little bit with our tool in a minute. But I want to give myself enough resin to work with. There. Okay. This stir stick is from Counterculture DIY. It's just a plastic stir stick. It's shaped just like a wooden popsicle stick, a big one. Except it's plastic, so it's reusable. So we'll be able to wipe the resin right on off of this baby and reuse it. Come in a pack of 5, I believe. Promise I don't work for them, but I sure do promote them, I know. I see a hair. I think there's a rather big hair, dang it. Got that one. Don't mind as I lean over y'all if you see the top of my head. My hair is a mess today. Here's a big one too. Okay. Got them out. I see some bubbles, and that's okay. We'll pop some. And then it will also change up here once we add our other additives. So it's not going to be the end of the world. So as you see, I'm just pushing this over to the edge, and then it finds its way and fills in the gaps as it needs to. As long as you have enough resin in it, it's going to fill itself in. And then it will self-level and gravitate towards the center. I see another hair over here. I do not know where these ones came from. They're pretty iridescent, so I would say they just were so clear I couldn't see them until they're floating in the resin. So running the heat gun over top, pop a lot of these bubbles. I've got a big one over here. I'm not sure if it's noticeable in the camera, but we're going to get it. And I got some big ones on the edges over here. So my tool is pointed, but it's not sharp. So this is one of those silicone brushes. So what I can do is I can just come over to this bubble and pull him to the surface. And then dip my heat gun right in the resin. What not to do. You want to be careful with your heat though, because you do not want to ruin your molds. Too much heat could ruin your molds, so you just want to be aware of that. You do not want to use the sharp thing. Like I see people use toothpicks. That's fine, as long as you do not touch your mold with the toothpick, because it will go ahead and make a scratch on your mold, and then you cannot fix the mold from that. I almost wonder if these little stringy hairs are forming in the resin. I don't know. This guy, I guess he's fine. I feel like I filled him a little too much with clear. I just don't want to run into that we're going to be over. This bubble over here has just been stubborn. It's getting smaller, but boy, it's been stubborn. Okay. Alrighty. So I want to let that set for 3 minutes. So we're at 30:08, so we're going to let it set for 33. So pour clear layer, set for 3 minutes. I better write minute after this 5, otherwise I'll forget what that was. And now I'm going to start kind of prepping my resin. I'm not going to mix everything that I need, but I'm going to start prepping what I need, just so that I can get kind of an even amount of everything that I'm doing. I don't think I accounted for the casting craft. This one is literally going to take like the small amount. Because it's going to be for our micas. Am I going to have enough in here to do the casting craft? It's going to be pushing it. And I feel like I have too much in here. So I wouldn't always recommend doing this, but because I do feel like I've got a little bit too much, I'm going to go ahead and just pull a little bit out of it. And I know I'm not pulling a ton when I do this. I'm just scooping a small amount. And then as long as the resin pulls itself back together, I know that I haven't pulled too much. So see how it's filling in all those gaps that I drew through there? Okay, let's just make sure these are approximately, yeah. I think that will be well enough for casting craft. I'm going to get another paper cup for the casting craft. So this is probably about the minimum amount of resin that you could do for these 2 molds. I would not recommend cutting it this close, but in the situation that we were in, we don't got much choice, so it's gonna be what it be. And that's that. That's what I say. So I'm just trying to get every last drop. And yes, I could have poured I could have mixed the casting craft in this container. But honestly, it's so big that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just go ahead and get the resin out of it into a smaller container, more manageable, yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool, cool, cool. On the same page? On the same page. All right, so we've let it sit for more than 3 minutes. I probably even could pull a little more from this guy. I want to be able to have enough to do some blooming with, so I think we'll be okay. Well, look at these. I'm going to pour just, I'll probably, watch, I'm going to have like so much casting craft left over. I'm going to be like, I could have. But it's okay. It's alright. Alrighty, so here's where it's going to get a little fun. A little crazy. A little crazy. Alright. Get me some little mini stir sticks so I can stir this stuff up. Alrighty. You ready for a marathon? I'm going to shake these up. These are alcohol inks. Pigment likes to settle at the bottom, so good idea to shake them up. We're going to mix them first because they will actually thin the resin, whereas mica is going to thicken and make the mica start reacting. So I'm going to guess 5 drops. And we'll see. I might need to do more, depending on the color I want. But you can always add. You cannot take away. Just so that I know. Oh yeah, that is a beautiful yellow. And actually, I really probably didn't need this much because I'm going to do this just in the center. And it dawned on me that that's the same with this one. So I'm going to pour about half of this out because I'm really not going to need that much for it. Whereas this one, the purple's going to get mixed around the whole thing. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we got 6. We got 6. So we'll make note. We'll just do 6 of each because this girl does not want to have to do 5 of one and 6 of the other. Okay. That's pretty. So alcohol inks are going to be more transparent. And that's the look that you're going for. I like to do a combination of colorants to help with the bloom. I'm actually going to go ahead and do 10 on this one, and we'll keep that one at 6. Because I want this one to have just a smidge more. And this one I just spun my glove in that. We'll have to mix before we drop it in again, just because the shimmer is sinking on it. It's okay. All right, Armor Art. I have not worked a ton with them. Probably didn't get shook enough because we're coming out mostly clear. And I don't think this bottle I can. Oh yeah, I can. I'm just going to mix that up in the bottle and then bring that into here. Oh my goodness, look at this purple, y'all. So pretty. What a mess, but so pretty. Glad I did this in a paper cup. Look at that. It's like so pearly. Love it. Okay. Now, I'm like, okay, where am I? This is where it gets a little confusing. I'm like, okay, I'm here. There is a hair in this cup. It might just have to stay, but got it. All right, this is gonna only take, mica takes like the littlest amount pretty much to get the color that you want. Look at that. It's so pretty. And I know that's been sitting, but it's going to be the same when we do the other because we're going to have to mix these anyway. And I didn't want to mix these during that 3 minutes because if I did, then our micas might start heating up too much and create a flash cure or get so sticky it's hard to work with. So, like I said, timing is tricky, but playing around. I love that. Micas, you want to get that powder really mixed in there. I would even say we could add a little bit more of the purple. Just to give it a little more vibrant. So a little plastic spoon. Oh, poofing. Oh yeah. Look at that. And it's getting to where we gotta cruise. We have to cruise, y'all. Okay. So, let's see. I am going to do something a little different on each one. So, you're just going to have to kind of watch that, bear with, and go from there. Let me grab another little spoon to get a few of these. This is going to be our center. Okay, so you think of a flower and the center is typically yellow. And I know the other end is purple, but this end has this. So when we think of a flower, our center, so I'm just putting a little bit of this in the center. I don't want a ton because I don't want it to take away from our flower and our bloom, but a little something just to give us that that's the center. Okay, then I'm going to put in a little bit of this shimmer yellow and even just kind of draw it a little bit around that mica. And it's going to come in a little bit more as it sets up, so I know that one got a little bit big. And remember, in nature, flowers are not perfect, so you do not need to be perfect. Okay, so just remember that as you're doing this. Now I'm going to do a little bit of this gold because as a flower, again, it's not going to be perfect, and you're going to have some darker and you're going to have some lighter. So I just want it to have a little bit like that. And then we're going to do a little bit of gold flakes. We're going to split it up. And we're going to use this silicone brush. And we're going to just bring this all together. I know it looks funky. It will come together, I promise. Pull that yellow more in. We're going to cover it up. Probably won't even notice it, but. And I'm kind of breaking that gold up a little bit, chopping it with my silicone brush. Again, because I'm using a silicone brush, I'm not damaging the mold underneath. Okay. Yay. Alrighty, so here's where it's going to get fun. Let me close these micas. Heaven forbid I knocked one of them over. Okay. So on this one, the colorants are going to go in the shape of the flower. On this one, we're going to spiral the colorants. And then I'll show you what we're going to do with the white. Okay. So I'm going to rotate my colors. All right. So this is the armor art. And you see how I'm just pouring a little bit out. Not too crazy. Trying to keep my flow as even-ish as possible. Okay. And that's okay. We're going to have some of that. This one I'm going to try to do a little bit thinner. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to do the alcohol ink. So I did a thicker. Now I'm going to do the thinner. So this one's almost fully transparent, as you can see. I'm putting it in between those, as you noticed, to help break up my other one. Start this one over here. So it helps push that around. Cool. Look. Loving it. Yo, I am loving it. So excited to do these blooms again. It's so fun. So this is where it gets a little bit more tricky just because we're coming up where our petals are. So, and I'm just gonna add since I dribbled a smidge in that petal, I'm gonna do kind of the same imperfection, right? Okay. This one I don't really know. I'm just going. I love this mica one. Ooh, love it. All right, so then I'm going to add, because I have a little bit more of this. That one looks pretty good. So I have a little bit more of this. We're going to go ahead and add a little bit to our petals up here. So we're going to go. Sorry, I stopped the sound effect. Come on. If I really needed to, I could scrape more out, but we're not going to. I think that's good. I'm going to do just an ever so small amount of our alcohol ink one. I wasn't sure with this alcohol ink if it would be the color I wanted, but I think it's going to work out really good in the long run. I know it's not going to be like in your face, but that's okay. Sometimes you want some subtleties with it. We're getting really thick. But that's okay because we're really, really close to wrapping this up. And you notice I'm not being overly worried about going on the lips of this mold because it will clean up. I mean, if I could be perfect, I wouldn't. But given the thickness of this and the way it's flowing, kind of is what it kind of be. Okay? Okay. Alright. So we kind of need to get that resin into something so that we don't just totally waste it. So I have a coaster, a car coaster mold handy. And I'm going to go ahead and dump some of those into it. And then I'm going to dump maybe a couple into this like gemstone mold. And then we're going to get this casting craft cleaned up, mixed up and put. So I'm just going to go in the center, chunk that up. I know it's chunky, but that's okay. And I'm not worried about, like, you see that I'm not worried about mixing my yellow with it or my purple with the yellow. It's fine. At this point, this is going to be considered kind of a dump mold of like, I don't care how it comes out. We're just not going to waste resin. Kind of thing. I literally, if you heard all that crinkling, it was me opening this mold up. Never used it. So we'll see. See how it comes out. Have some, maybe some really cool gemstone, like diamondy gemstone things happening. I'm trying to make sure that the resin just kind of goes in and doesn't sneak a bubble in there. Which is a smidge time consuming. Probably should have gotten our true mold to dump pour, but that's okay. All right, we have about as much as we could out of there. Let's go ahead and do this one. Of course, I'm being careful to not spill into those. Look at how that one's blooming. So we'll get our casting craft in it really soon. Go in there. This one's going to be a duo color. Not that it's going to be really that noticeable, but maybe a little bit. Okay. Let's get this one in. Can you tell that I do not like to waste resin? I really don't like to waste resin. Probably to a fault, in some sense, I would say. Okay. I'm going to not worry about those two because I want to get this casting craft done. Okay, so we're going to shake it up. Just move that around. Oh, these are blooming really nicely. I'm going to do 4 drops, actually 5. Oh, 6 almost went in. It's really hard to get out, but look how wide it comes up. Okay, we want this mixed pretty good, and I didn't grab a proper stir stick. I just grabbed my silicone brush because I knew timing wise I had to get it mixed, and it looks really good. So what I'm going to do with it is I have a, not that, I have a cake piping bag, and I am going to pour our casting craft into said piping bag. So what I did is I just put this bag essentially into another cup, and that way I can just pour it right in. This is going to give us a little bit more control to do what we want with the casting craft, and we are going to have more than enough, y'all. Told you. I was like, oh, we'll be worried. Oh no, we are going to have more than enough. And if you don't have a professional cake pipe bag, I get these off of Amazon. Or I got these ones off of Amazon. They're really cheap for the amount that you get. But you could always use a sandwich baggie. So don't be like, oh my gosh, now I gotta buy something else. No, you can truly use a sandwich baggie. Now the trick is, don't cut your hole too big, because if you cut your hole too big, you can't go back. You can always cut more off if you need to. So I just cut a little tip off, and it's kind of nice to just try this on the side. So we're going to just try it in here so that we don't waste it. We're going to see if that's going to be big enough. It's probably not big enough for what we need. So squish that back down. Let's cut a smidge bigger. Make sure to clean your scissors afterwards, because you will seal them shut if you don't. Oh yeah, that's more like what I want. Okay, so this one we did the flower design with the color. So with our casting craft, we are going to go in a spiral. Okay. Not just actually have the perfect mat. And then on this one, we're going to give it some flower shapes. Or petal shapes, I should say. And again, flowers aren't perfect, y'all. So my petals don't have to be perfect. I'm not an artist when it comes to flowers, so don't stress about your petals, okay? Because ultimately when this comes out, you're not going to see all these little lines. Because have you seen how the colorant resin is already moving so much and blooming? That's all this is going to help it do, is to move more. Okay. Just add a little bit more in there. We'll add some definition to it. And then I had this thought, I was like, what if I end up with extra casting craft? You know, because I think these things somewhat do. And I was like, because I typically do end up with extra. It's just how it rolls for me. I was like, oh, I'll just add the colored resins in it. But I knew that I needed to get that colored resin rolling. Because if I didn't, it was going to become a sticky mess, which is sort of what this alcohol one did. And this is why we wear gloves, y'all. That's one thing. Thank goodness my hands don't need to do the talking, because that would not be good to have that all over us. Okay. I'm just adding this colorant down into the casting craft, basically. I'm just trying to scrape it into my bag. It's of course getting super sticky because it's setting itself up, which is what we want it to do. But doesn't mean it makes it easy to work with. Okay. Then I had this other thought, but my hands are just an absolute sticky, sticky, sticky mess. Okay. I'm going to put some alcohol on this so that I can get what I want. We're going to do this really blue, dark blue alcohol ink. I just squirt a bunch in there. And basically, I thought if it works, is it's going to make it kind of a marbled effect. I don't know. I don't know, y'all. We'll see. Well, that one's going to be an all white. That one has some blue in it. Oh, that one's got some blue. That's got a little bit more blue. A little bit of, oh, I overfilled you. Let's top these ones off. These are just bonus pieces, you know? Otherwise you're just tossing resin. So I thought that blue one over there was going to be my last one, but might probably get one more. There we go. Okay. So that would be trash. That's trash. That's trash. Just shove that over there. Alright. Really quick, gonna wipe off my hands. This is where it's getting a little bit chaos, okay? Let's do a little bit of heat on these. They're moving really nicely, but I want to give just a little bit of heat. Pop some bubbles that I see trying to snake their way in. Get out of there. Move along. Okay, then we are going to take a silicone brush and a paper towel. It's got a little rubbing alcohol on it. It's fine. And I'm going to manipulate this a little bit. So again, this is a silicone brush, so it's not going to hurt my mold. So if I'm touching the bottom of the mold, it's not hurting it whatsoever. And we're going to bring it in and help define this flower. And then, so I brought it in on all the petals. And then we're going to go from the center to the outside. And I wipe my brush off each time so that it's getting fresh, clean when I'm pulling it through. Our resin. See? Look how beautiful. So this one would be a little bit more interesting because we don't have true definitions of where our petals per se are. So you just kind of got to wing it on that and decide where you want to create those definitions. And help just, it just helps give it that oomph you need. Especially when you do center to out. I think that is my favorite. It's hard for me to tell. This one ended up with like 6 petals, 7 petals. I really don't know. So we're just gonna roll with it. And then in the center, if you want, you can just kind of do a little swirl just to pull it all in. This one I'm going to go the opposite way because that's just how naturally the resin looked to be going. And voila. This one I'm not going to touch it, I don't think, because I think it's just kind of doing its thing. You know, I just feel like it's just bobbing. So I really don't want to do anything with it. Some of these overflowed, so I'm just bringing that extra resin into a new one. Basically. And that help like pull a bubble up. You know. That mold will be so much fun to clean when it comes time to. But we're not worried about that right now, right? We're good. Okay, y'all, look at how these are blooming. I'm loving it. See, you have got to trust the process, okay? Now I got a little hairy there for a second, but trust the process. Look how beautiful. I am going to hit everything with just a smidge more heat. If you notice where this is going, it's making the crafting cast bloom a little bit more. It's going to make that get more defined. It's just shifting the resin. So you don't want to overheat. 2 reasons. Well, let's go 3 reasons, okay? Reason number 1, you don't want to catch your resin on fire and create a flash. Reason number 2, you don't want to burn your mold. Reason number 3, you don't want to over manipulate it because they are looking gorgeous the way they are. And if we start manipulating this more by getting that resin really hot, it's going to start coming more to the center and not having as defined lines, which is why when we pour our clear, we go ahead and we wait 5 minutes, or 3 minutes, I think we did. Yeah, 3 minutes. And it ended up being a little bit longer because we had to mix our colors and so forth, I'm not super worried because we're going to have to do that with the next round too. So yes, it may be off a little bit here or there, but it's not going to be much. I'm going to show you something. I'm not going to spray these two with the rubbing alcohol because it will create a reaction, but because this is just an extra piece, I'm going to spray the rubbing alcohol on it. It's sort of reacting. Probably not enough for you to see on the camera though. And I don't want to go too crazy, but it's going to pop bubbles, but it's going to also thin that resin as well as the heat does. So you can kind of see the white did thin out a little bit there. So I would just say with balloon coasters, I wouldn't spray these because if I spray it, you're probably going to get dots of where that rubbing alcohol landed, essentially. So these will set for at least overnight, but I would say that I'm going to have them set a minimum of 24 hours before I would demold them, just because they're a little bit thinner than the mold, so they're going to be more flexible, and I want them to really harden up. The other reason I'm not demolding these, which is going to take extreme, I'm telling you, extreme patience and hold me back kind of stuff. Can't think of the word I want to use, but basically it is going to be so hard for me not to unmold these because they're so pretty on the back side here that I bet you that other side, when I flip them over, is going to be just stunning. And I cannot wait to see it. But for the sake of the video, y'all, I'm going to hold myself back and I'm going to be good. Okay? So just know the sacrifices, because that is going to be maybe the hardest part of this one is me not being able to flip those over. All right. So now the not so fun maybe stuff, cleaning up your workspace, right? Granted, we're going to be using all these colorants again, so the nice thing about that is then I don't have to put them away. I'm just going to move them out of my way and put lids and things back on. Got to be careful so we don't get dust or anything on these, so we are going to cover them here in just a minute, but I need to clean up the space a smidge before I could. So I'm clearing that space. And I work on a silicone mat. If you haven't seen the other videos, then you wouldn't know that, maybe. But this is a silicone mat. It's by Counterculture DIY. I actually have two of them on this work table, so that's why they're sideways, because they fit great length this way and give me full coverage of the entire table and a little bit up the wall. So that's why I do that. And then they fit perfectly too wide. So that's why the Counterculture DIY is like the wrong way. So I'm not worried. What I was getting at is I'm not worried when resin hits this because it will pop right up off that silicone. So we're not worried. Okay. I try to keep it clean though. Kind of a neat freak when it comes to that stuff. If you notice, like, don't put your ones and don't put alcohol inks in your silicone cups because it stains them. That kind of thing. I know it shouldn't bug me, and silicone cups are like a dime a dozen, but it's little things that bug me. Like that. Okay. Now the paper cups will get tossed, so I'm not so worried about them. And this is just a clear tote here, Sterilite tote that I put over. So it's a little foggy, but it's going to protect our surface, okay? And truthfully, I don't care if I get resin on this, but just for the sake of it that I don't cover it fully with resin, I am wiping every tool with the initial clean from this paper towel that probably should have been thrown away already. This one that has alcohol, rubbing alcohol on it, not alcohol ink. But I'm trying to get as much of the things that need resin cleaned off. I'll just kind of get them up here so you guys can see them. One downside of working in a super small place and not having another spot to just move over and move filming over. Okay, that's probably close to all I'm going to get out of this piece of paper towel. So I think I did pretty good. So I'm going to throw it away, get a new one. I always, with a fresh one, start with some of the items that I've already done that basic wipe off of, because it's not getting so dirty. And like that guy is basically done. So I'm going to move him to the side. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this one off. I didn't really use him much, but we're going to move him off to the side. I'm going to also get my scissors wiped off. And I'm going to leave them open, you know, like open like this to dry, because I want to ensure that they don't get stuck together. Okay. And it's just all about wiping these off. And honestly, y'all, probably what gets to me smell-wise the worst out of resin stuff is when I'm using the rubbing alcohol to clean up, because it is so strong. So this is where I would definitely suggest to wear your protective gear. I mean, I would do it anyway when you're working with resin. That's my claws. Okay, so don't come at me. I warned y'all, told y'all the precautions. Okay, do your research. Do what you feel right for you. But that's my 2 cents. Now this glove is totally ripping, but we're almost done, so I'm not going to replace it just yet. Now this one still has a decent amount in it, but this is a pretty clean paper towel still with the rubbing alcohol. So we're going around. Clean that up. I really don't think I need to go on it again. It looks good. Okay. These 2 cups, ugh, super sticky. So these ones, it's 1 finger is all that fits in there. Now these ones have the worst little crevices. So I shove a bunch in, and then a finger and a thumb get in there to get in those crevices. Okay. So it's starting to bug me, but we're so close. I'll do that one more time with a fresh one, just so that it gets fully cleaned. Okay, this paper towel's just about had it, but I got a clean spot there, so let's go in again and get in those crevices. Really pushing that paper towel in there. Yay! Now, because, you know, this is full-on resin still, I'm going to use that paper towel, give it its initial clean, and this one. This is our big one that we mixed in. So, I'm using the same paper towel. Reason for it is I'm just getting all that ooey gooey resin that I can on this dirty, gross paper towel. And it's about as used as possible. Really trying to not get a new glove, but this glove is disintegrating like already, and I'm afraid I don't want to, like, if there's resin on the outside of this cup, I just got to be careful, because I don't want to get resin on my hand. Alright, oh, a little bit crazy, which is why we have those covered under there. And if, I know this is kind of boring. Oh, I just realized there's like some of the stone mica in that. So I'll wipe that out. I know this part's kind of boring, but I am going to recap what I did on those coasters. So if you want to fast forward through the cleaning, I won't be mad. But also, if you've watched my previous videos, I don't like to cut stuff for you guys. I want you to see the whole process in the time. Not once did I pause the video tonight so that you could get the whole start to finish. From beginning to end. This will not get edited either. Like, I won't go back through and edit it. Truthfully. First few I did, I would listen to the entire thing. I really don't like listening to my own voice. Don't know who does, but I really don't. So, that's one thing. But two, rarely did I find something that I was like cringeworthy that I'd want to edit out, maybe. But then I don't have the full skills to do that. Or the setup. So I was just like, you get the real me. So, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, that's something that I want to see the unedited version. I like to see the whole process. If you heard me burp, I'm sorry. I don't know. See, again, not a professional here. Okay, this glove is done, clearly. This one's actually pretty good. Pretty cleaned up. And that paper towel will get put on my alcohol bottle to be used next round. Whew. Messy. This glove might fall apart when I pull it off just because my hands are so dang sweaty. Which is gross. I know y'all feel me. You understand me. If you're here and you've stuck it out this long, you understand. Alright, so these are all cleaned. They will set up on here for a little while just to dry out and air out. I don't put them all the way away just because I want them to finish drying. Alright, so I'm going to give it a little quick synopsis recap of our process, just so that if you're still curious exactly what I did, you have it. If you don't want to hear this part, finish the video and have a wonderful evening, and I'm glad you stayed this long. If you want to hear the recap, hang tight. Let's roll with it. So, we are doing a tutorial. It's going to be 3-part tutorial. This is part 1. We are comparing 2 different kinds of resin. We are going to, we poured this one tonight. This is the amazing clear cast. Got it at Michael's. I don't know if Hobby Lobby carries it. Amazon does, of course, but I got mine at Michael's. Fairly certain. So, and then next episode we will do the counterculture pour, and then we will do a 3rd episode where we unmold both pours at the same time so that we can compare and see how they look. We want to give a side by side. So this is our amazing clear cast, and we mixed it. We mixed 55 milliliters of part A and part B, 56 maybe, and mixed that up. We let that, once we stirred it for 3 minutes, we let it set for 5. So we let it rest. For those who maybe bread bake, I think you have to let it rest. Don't come at me if I'm wrong. So we let it rest for 5 minutes. Then we went ahead and we poured our clear. We poured some clear into both molds. I swear that one looks like it has hairs in it again. I'm wondering if it's the resin. I'm going to be curious if counterculture does that. Because I can't imagine there's that many hairs in that spot in what we were doing. Anyway, sidetrack. Sorry. Through the tote, I can see some stringy things, and I'm wondering if it's the resin. So, anywho, we poured a clear layer. We let that set for at least 3 minutes, and then we mixed all of our colorants and so forth. So we used alcohol ink, Armor Art, we had mica powders, and we used a stone mica and some gold flakes for our center. We did some yellow in the center with our 2 thicker added pieces, and then we did our colorants. So the way I like to do my colorants a lot of times I'll do light first and then a dark, like a thicker. So light and dark isn't really what I want to explain it as. So I will do the colorant that is thinner, so like your alcohol ink, and then I'll do my mica powder. Now we threw a third one in there with our armor art, so I wanted to split those two with my alcohol ink. It really doesn't matter. You can't go wrong with the process. Just choose and go with it, is what I would tell you. Have fun, okay? It's all about having fun and enjoying what you're doing. Enjoy the process. If it frustrates you, this may not be it, okay? May not be your cup of tea. So I did the armor art first, then I did our alcohol ink in purple, and then I did the mica powder purple. On the flower one, we poured our colorants into the shapes of the petals. We made our petals from that, from the colorants. On our geode one, we did swirls with our colorants. So kind of start in the middle, go all the way around to the outside, and then do our other color. So this one only ended up with 3 spirals, essentially. 1 of the armor art, 2 of the alcohol ink, and 3 of the mica powder. Okay. This one ended up with some extra petals because we had extra and the mold is a little bit bigger and we had more room to add our petals on out. So we added the color up into the petals just so that we could get the color more up into those petals. You could leave it clear and just have when we draw it into there. I'm more the one that fills it in. That's just me. Again, do what suits you. Then, to not waste those colorant resins, we poured some into this car cup coaster. Say that 10 times fast. Jeez. So we poured it into there. And then we poured some into our little mold here with like the little diamond pieces in this one. Okay. The reason I did that in that moment is because those additive items to the resin is going to make it start thickening really fast, and it's going to make it start to do its reaction and going ahead and hardening and getting hot and getting to that level that then it's not workable. So instead of wasting them, I wanted to save it. Ideally, I would have done like a dump like mold or something where I just didn't care and I'd pour it all in and see what happens, so that we weren't trying to fit into that little mold here at the bottom. Hindsight 2020, right? Okay. Enough of that. So then we mixed up our casting craft. Now I have had this since I started with resin. I can't really tell where I'm at on use-wise of it, but it almost seems like I'm maybe like about right here. Like you don't use it a lot. I used 5 drops of it in what we mixed up. It's a very concentrate pigment, okay? But it helps with the blooming, all right? It helps us give that lacy bloom look. Use this with ocean scenes too, which I haven't perfected fully with waves, but that's the idea. So we mixed it up, we put it in a cake piping bag, and we piped it in. So on this one, since we already had petals drawn on it, we swirled our white all the way around. On this one, we didn't have petals drawn in because we had swirls. So with our white, we made petals. Do you remember how ugly my petals were on that? Like, look at it now. I know it's foggy because of this tote not being 100% transparent, but those petals don't look anything like they did. And that's why I said, trust the process and don't panic. You don't have to be an artist to do this. Okay. I added a little bit of that casting craft to the car cup coaster. Just because what the heck, doesn't matter. I did the same over here because what the heck, these don't matter. These were our focus and they have turned out beautifully. Then we hit them with a little bit of heat. Just pop any bubbles and move that resin just a smidge. And then lastly, we took a silicone brush and we defined our petals. So bring in to the center, making our petals, wiping our silicone brush after each pull through the resin. Then to define our petals even more, we go from center to out. Now when I'm going center to out, I'm not hitting that yellow center a ton because I want to keep that yellow center as intact as possible in the center. So I'm coming just a little bit outside of it and then drawing out to all the edges in between those petals and giving that nice defined line. Did the same thing on the geoid one. We had little petals drawn, but then I made new petals by drawing with that silicone brush and doing that. Then you let them set. Hit them with a little bit of heat, maybe to move the resin a little bit, and then you just let it do its magic. They are blooming. Every moment I look down, I see that the bloom has shifted, and that's exactly what you want when you have a bloom going. So it's doing what we want it to, so we leave it. Don't touch it. I go to bed so that I'm not tempted. It's going to be really hard to not unmold these in the morning, just so you know, because that's usually one of my favorite parts of the resin is seeing that final product. But we're going to hold to it. I'm not going to unmold them. I will wait until the unmolding video and unmold with y'all. So hope you guys enjoyed tonight's series. I'm beginning of this series. Hope you enjoyed the episode of this series. Hope you're enjoying everything. I hope that you guys are finding joy in your life. Find what makes you happy. If it's just watching crafting videos, just watch crafting videos. If it's doing it, do it. Enjoy. Be kind to yourself. And I will see you guys for part 2 of this series. Have a good night.